The lights on the bridge of the Valkyrie flickered in their usual pattern. Captain Daniel Carter sat in his chair watching the stars blur past the viewing window. 3 months of patrol duty in the Outer Rim, and nothing interesting had happened. Just endless space and the occasional asteroid field. Lisa Morgan sat at her communication station, running through the daily checks. She was young, only 24, but she had good instincts. Her fingers moved across the controls when suddenly she stopped. Her screen showed something strange. "Captain," she said, her voice uncertain. "I'm picking up something odd." Daniel straightened in his chair. "What kind of odd?" "It's a signal. Quantum band frequency. I've never seen this pattern before." Lisa adjusted her controls, trying to clean up the interference. "It's weak. Really weak. Like it's coming from very far away." Lieutenant Greg Hughes turned from his tactical station. He was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Could be a trap. Pirates use fake distress calls all the time." Daniel stood and walked to Lisa's station. "Can you decode it?" "Working on it." Lisa's fingers flew across her keyboard. "The encoding is completely foreign. Not any language in our database." Dr. Patricia Wells entered the bridge carrying a cup of coffee. She was the ship's xenolinguist responsible for understanding alien languages. "Did someone say foreign encoding?" "Take a look at this." Lisa transferred the data to Patricia's tablet. Patricia studied the screen, her eyes widening. "This is fascinating. It's not following any standard communication protocol." She pulled up another screen running analysis programs. "Wait, these patterns here? They're mathematical constants. Pi Euler's number, the golden ratio. Universal language," Daniel said. "Mathematics works the same everywhere." "Exactly." Patricia worked faster now, her excitement growing. Whoever sent this knew that math would be understood by any intelligent species. The bridge fell quiet except for the soft beeping of computers. Everyone watched as Patricia worked. Minutes passed. Then she stopped and looked up at Daniel, her face pale. "I got part of it translated," she said quietly. "It says children dying. Void predators. Please help." The words hung in the air. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had children back on Earth. 2 daughters, 8 and 11. The thought of them in danger, calling for help that might never come, made him feel sick. "Show me the coordinates," he said. Lisa brought up a star map. A red dot appeared, marking the source of the signal. "It's in the contested zone, 3 days away at maximum speed." "The contested zone," Greg repeated, his voice heavy. "That's not good, Captain. The Galactic Council marked that area as off-limits. Too much pirate activity." Commander Kate Sullivan entered the bridge. She was Daniel's second-in-command, practical and smart. "What's going on?" Daniel explained quickly. Kate listened, then looked at the star map. "We're 3 days from our nearest outpost. If we go to these coordinates, we'll be alone out there." "I know," Daniel said. "The Council won't back us up if something goes wrong." Kate continued. "They might even discipline us for entering the contested zone without permission." "I know that too." Kate studied his face. "You're going anyway, aren't you?" Daniel looked at the message on the screen. Children dying. He thought about his daughters again. He thought about why he had joined the space service in the first place. Not to follow rules blindly, not to ignore people who needed help. Humanity didn't crawl up from Earth to ignore distress calls, he said. We survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We did it by helping each other, by protecting the weak. I'm not going to stop now just because we're in space. Greg shook his head. "Captain, I need to say this. My simulations show a 70% chance this is a trap. Pirates know humans respond to distress calls. They could be baiting us." "Could be," Daniel agreed. "But what if it's real? What if there really are children dying out there while we debate probabilities?" The bridge was silent again. Then Kate nodded slowly. "You're right." "We have to go," Patricia smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." Even Greg sighed and turned back to his station. "Fine, but I'm running every defensive protocol we have. And I'm keeping weapons hot the entire way." "Fair enough," Daniel said. He moved back to his chair and pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All hands, this is the captain. We've received a distress call from an unknown species. We're changing course to investigate. It's going to be dangerous, but it's also the right thing to do. I'm proud to serve with all of you. Carter out." He closed the channel and looked at his pilot. "Amy, set course for those coordinates." "Maximum speed," Pilot Officer Amy Clark nodded. She was barely 22, but she could fly better than anyone Daniel had ever seen. Course laid in, Captain. 3 days, 2 hours at current speed. Engage. The Valkyrie turned, its powerful engines burning bright. The ship accelerated, leaving its patrol route behind. On the bridge, the crew settled into their stations, knowing that they were heading toward danger. Hours passed. Daniel stayed on the bridge, reviewing everything they knew about the contested zone. It wasn't much. The area was far from major trade routes. The Galactic Council had surveyed it 50 years ago and found nothing interesting, so they left it alone. Pirates had moved in soon after, using it as a base for raids on nearby systems. Patricia worked on decoding more of the message. She managed to extract a few more words. The species calling for help called themselves Quillians. They were being attacked by something called the Kraith. Their ship was damaged and they couldn't escape. Captain, Lisa said suddenly, long-range sensors are picking up something. Daniel leaned forward. What is it? Multiple ships converging on the same coordinates we're heading to. Lisa's voice was tense. At least 3 of them. They're coming from different directions. Greg pulled up the sensor data. He studied it for a long moment, then cursed quietly. Those are Kraith signatures, pirates. They detected the same distress call, Kate said. They're going to get there before us. Daniel did the math in his head. The pirate ships were closer and faster. They would reach the Quillians first. Amy, can we go any faster? Not without damaging the engines, Amy replied. We're already pushing maximum safe speed. Then push beyond safe speed, Daniel ordered. Give me everything the engines can handle. Amy hesitated only a second, then grinned. Yes, sir. The Valkyrie surged forward. The ship vibrated as the engines exceeded their normal limits. Down in engineering, Chief Engineer Ryan Moore would be cursing and making adjustments, keeping everything from exploding. But he would do it. That was the human way. Push past the limits. Take risks that other species would call insane. The next 3 days were tense. The crew worked in shifts, but no one really slept. Everyone knew what was coming. They would arrive to find pirates attacking a defenseless ship. They would be outnumbered. The odds were bad, but no one suggested turning back. On the 3rd day, Daniel was in his quarters trying to rest when the alert sounded. He ran to the bridge, arriving just as the Valkyrie dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The viewing screen showed carnage. Debris floated everywhere, pieces of ships torn apart by weapons fire. Lisa identified the wreckage immediately. Quillian design, she said quietly. These were merchant ships, destroyed recently. Among the debris, sensors found a larger ship. It was damaged, leaking atmosphere and radiation, but it was still moving, still trying to escape. And behind it, 3 pirate vessels were closing in, firing their weapons in short bursts. They're not trying to destroy it, Greg observed. They're disabling it. They want whatever's inside. Patricia gasped as her translation programs finished analyzing Quillian language. Captain, that colony ship has over 3,000 people on board. Most of them are civilians. 800 are children in suspended animation. Daniel felt rage burn in his chest. Pirates hunting children. He thought about what his daughters would say if they knew he had turned away from this. He thought about what kind of man that would make him. Battle stations, he ordered, his voice cold. Greg, plot an intercept course. Put us between those pirates and that colony ship. Yes, sir, Greg said, and for the first time he smiled. The Valkyrie moved forward, accelerating toward the battle. On the bridge, red alert lights flashed. Weapon systems came online. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, each person knowing their role. Amy guided the ship with delicate precision, placing it exactly where Daniel wanted. The Valkyrie positioned itself between the pirates and their prey, its weapons aimed at the nearest pirate vessel. Lisa opened all communication channels. This is the human vessel Valkyrie. Stand down immediately or face consequences. For a moment, nothing happened. Then laughter came through the speakers. The pirates were laughing at them. One pirate ship broadcast a response in broken English. Humans here? You are far from home, Deathworlders. This is our territory. Leave now or die. Daniel looked at Greg. Show them we're serious. Disable the nearest ship's weapons array. Greg's fingers moved across his controls. Target locked, firing. The Valkyrie's main cannon fired once. The beam of energy crossed the distance in an instant and struck the pirate ship with surgical precision. The pirate's weapon systems exploded, disabled but leaving the rest of the ship intact. The laughter stopped. The Quillian colony ship looked worse up close. Holes punctured its hull and fluids leaked into space, freezing instantly into crystals. The ship was dying, and everyone aboard would die with it unless they got help soon. Daniel stood on the bridge, studying the damaged vessel through the viewing screen. He could see movement inside through the holes, shapes moving frantically, people trying to survive. "Lisa, open a channel to that ship," he ordered. Static filled the speakers at first. Then a voice came through, weak and distorted. The words were in Quillian language, which the computer translated into English with a slight delay. "This is Trilix, captain of the colony ship Harmony. We are grateful for your help. But we are dying. Our life support is failing. Tell him help is coming," Daniel said. "Kate, get a medical team ready. Patricia, you're going with them. You're our best chance at communicating properly." Kate nodded and left the bridge quickly. Patricia gathered her translation equipment and followed. Dr. Helen Price was already in the medical bay preparing supplies. She was the ship's chief medical officer, experienced and calm under pressure. When Kate explained the situation, Helen simply started adding more equipment to the supply cases. "How many injured?" Helen asked. "Unknown," Kate replied. "But there are over 3,000 people on that ship, and 800 children in failing stasis pods." Helen's face went pale, but her hands stayed steady. "We'll need everyone. Get me every medic we have." Within minutes, a team was ready. 6 medics, 4 engineers, and a security detail of 8 Marines led by Sergeant Lucas Grant. Lucas was a big man, almost 2 meters tall, with hands that could crush steel, but were gentle when needed. "Our job is to protect the medical team while they work," Lucas told his Marines. "Stay alert. If any pirates come back, we need to hold them off long enough for our people to evacuate." The team took a shuttle across to the Quillian ship. As they approached, they could see the damage even more clearly. Scorch marks covered the hull. Entire sections were torn open. How anyone was still alive inside was a miracle. The shuttle docked with one of the intact airlocks. Lucas and his Marines went through first, weapons ready. They emerged into chaos. The interior of the ship was a mess. Quillian civilians rushed back and forth carrying supplies, trying to patch holes and tending to the wounded. The Quillians themselves were insectoid, about 1.5 meters tall with multiple arms and large compound eyes. They looked fragile, their chitinous exoskeletons cracked and damaged. When they saw the humans, many Quillians backed away in fear. Patricia stepped forward quickly, her translator active. "We're here to help," she said, her voice gentle. "Where is Captain Trilix?" A young Quillian pointed toward a corridor. "Medical bay." The captain was injured defending the children. The team moved through the ship carefully. The gravity was lighter than Earth standard, making each step feel bouncy. The air was thin and smelled strange but breathable for humans. For the Quillians, it must be getting dangerously low. They found Trilix in the medical bay, connected to various machines that were barely functioning. One of his arms was missing, torn off in the battle. His exoskeleton was cracked in multiple places, and green blood seeped from the wounds. Helen immediately went to work, scanning him with her medical equipment. "His physiology is completely different from ours, but the basics are the same. He's lost too much blood. We need to stabilize him." While Helen worked on Trilix, Patricia spoke with the other Quillians in the medical bay. She learned their story quickly. The Quillians were peaceful merchants and philosophers. They had been traveling to establish a new colony on a distant world when the Kraith pirates attacked them. "We tried to fight," one Quillian said, his voice full of grief. "But we are not warriors. We had only a few weapons, and they were not enough. The pirates destroyed our escort ships in the first attack. Then they damaged our engines so we could not escape." "Why did they keep attacking if they had already disabled you?" Patricia asked. "They wanted us alive, to sell as slaves, and to take our cargo." The Quillian gestured toward a door. "The children. The pirates wanted to take the children. They sell for high prices to certain species who use them for terrible purposes." Patricia felt sick. She had studied many alien cultures, learned about the good and bad in the galaxy, but this kind of evil still shocked her. Back on the Valkyrie, Ryan Moore led his engineering team to the Quillian ship's engine room. They needed to get the faster-than-light drive working again, or everyone would be stranded when the pirates returned. Ryan was a genius with engines. He could take apart a fusion reactor blindfolded and put it back together better than before. But Quillian technology was completely different from human designs. Everything was built for their smaller size and different physiology. This is going to be challenging, Ryan said, studying the massive engine core. It was beautiful in a strange way, all flowing curves and crystalline structures, but it was also broken in at least 12 places that he could see. How long to fix it? One of his engineers asked. Ryan did calculations in his head. Under normal circumstances, with proper parts and tools, it would take weeks. But they didn't have weeks. The pirates would be back soon. 4 hours, Ryan said. Maybe 5 if things go wrong. His engineer stared at him. That's impossible. Yeah, Ryan agreed. But we're going to do it anyway. That's what humans do. We make the impossible happen. They got to work immediately. Ryan's team moved with organized chaos, cutting damaged sections, bypassing broken systems, and jury-rigging solutions that would make Quillian engineers faint. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy for pushing technology beyond safe limits. Right now, that reputation was going to save lives. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Daniel received reports from all the teams. The medical situation was stable for now. The engineering work was progressing. But Greg had bad news. Captain, long-range sensors are picking up something. Greg's face was grim. A large fleet is approaching. 12 ships. All Kraith signatures. Daniel's stomach dropped. How long until they arrive? 4 hours. Maybe less. 4 hours. The same amount of time Ryan needed to fix the engines. It was going to be close. Too close. Kate stood beside him, studying the sensor data. We can't fight 12 ships, Daniel. Not even humans are that good. I know. Daniel thought hard, running through options. They could run, leave the Quillians behind and save themselves. It was the logical choice. The smart choice. But it wasn't the human choice. There has to be something we can use, Daniel muttered, looking at the tactical display. The Quillian ship was near a small moon. Dead, airless, useless. Or was it? Greg, scan that moon. Full spectrum. Greg ran the scans, then looked up in surprise. It's an old mining colony. Abandoned, but the structures are still intact. And Captain, there's a defense grid. Old automated satellites probably left over from when this was an active mine. Are they still functional? Unknown. They're on standby power, and the control systems are offline. But the hardware looks intact. Daniel felt hope spark in his chest. Could we reactivate them? Greg studied the data carefully. Maybe. Someone would need to go to the control center on the moon's surface and manually bring the systems online. But Captain, the environmental data on that moon is harsh. High gravity, extreme temperatures, and the atmosphere is toxic. How harsh? 1.4 times Earth gravity. Temperature swings from -80 to positive 140 Celsius. Atmosphere is mostly sulfur compounds. Greg paused. For most species, it would be a death world. They couldn't survive there without heavy environmental suits that would slow them down too much. But for humans? Daniel asked. Greg smiled slowly. For humans, it's barely uncomfortable. Daniel pressed the communication button. Sergeant Grant, I need you back on the Valkyrie immediately. We have a mission. Lucas and his team returned to the human ship quickly. Daniel explained the plan in the briefing room. They needed to go to the moon, reach the control center, and reactivate the defense satellites. It had to be done fast because in 4 hours 12 pirate ships would arrive. Lucas studied the environmental data and nodded. We can do it. I'll take 3 of my best, Wade, Bennett, and Turner. Corporal Jenny Wade was an expert in electronics. Corporal Chris Bennett was the team's demolition specialist, useful if they needed to blast through obstacles. Private Alex Turner was young but strong, capable of carrying heavy equipment. The gravity won't be a problem, Lucas continued. We've trained in higher gravity than that. The temperature is manageable with our standard suits. And sulfur atmosphere? We've dealt with worse in training exercises. The team prepared quickly. They took cutting tools, explosives, and portable power generators. Within an hour, they were on a shuttle heading for the moon's surface. The moon was ugly. Gray rock and dust with no signs of life anywhere. The mining colony was a cluster of buildings half buried in the surface, connected by tunnels. The control center was deep underground, protected from the harsh environment above. Lucas led his team across the surface with long, bounding steps in the high gravity. Other species would struggle with each step, but humans evolved on Earth where gravity was even stronger than here. Their muscles were built for this. They reached the entrance to the control center and found it sealed. The first shots came from the defense satellites. Ancient weapons that had protected mining operations decades ago now fired at the Kraith fleet. Plasma cannons lit up the darkness of space, striking 3 pirate ships before they could react. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Greg monitored the battle with intense focus. 2 pirate ships heavily damaged, 1 completely disabled. The rest are scattering their formation. They're adapting fast, Kate observed. They'll start targeting the satellites now. She was right. The Kraith ships split up, some returning fire at the satellites while others moved to surround the Valkyrie. They were experienced pirates, used to fighting outnumbered prey. But they had never fought humans before. Amy, take us into the moon's gravity well, Daniel ordered. Use the terrain. Amy's fingers danced across her controls. The Valkyrie dove toward the moon's surface, moving so close that the sensors screamed warnings about collision. But Amy held steady, guiding the ship through a course that would kill most pilots from the stress. The Kraith ships followed, trying to maintain their attack formation. But flying close to a planetary body required skill and nerve. The pirates had skill. They didn't have the nerve to match a human pilot. Amy led them on a chase across the moon's surface, skimming through valleys and around peaks. 2 pirate ships clipped obstacles and spun out of control, crashing into the moon's surface in blooms of fire and debris. 10 ships left, Greg reported. But they're getting smarter. They're not following us anymore. They're spreading out, trying to cut off our escape routes. On the moon's surface, Lucas and his team felt the impacts of the crashes. Dust and rock rained down around the control center. Alex rushed to the window and saw one of the wrecked pirate ships just a kilometer away, burning and broken. That was close, Alex said. Jenny didn't look up from her terminal. She was too focused on managing the power distribution for the satellites. Another satellite just went offline. We're down to 8 functional units. How much longer can we keep them running? Lucas asked. 20 minutes, maybe 25. Jenny's hands moved constantly, cycling power, rerouting systems, doing everything she could to extend their operational time. Chris stood by the door with his weapon ready. Anyone else worried that the pirates might come down here to stop us? As if summoning them with his words, Jenny's sensors showed 3 small ships breaking off from the main battle. They were heading for the moon's surface directly toward the control center. Captain, Lucas said into his radio. We have incoming. 3 fighters heading to our position. Daniel's voice came back immediately. Can you hold them off? Lucas looked at his small team, then at the approaching fighters on the sensor display. We'll do our best, sir. That's all I can ask. Valkyrie out. Lucas turned to his team. Chris, can you rig any of the mining equipment outside as traps? Chris grinned. Give me 5 minutes. While Chris ran outside to set up defenses, Lucas positioned Jenny and Alex at windows with rifles. The Kraith fighters would land soon, and then enemy soldiers would try to storm the control center. In space, the battle continued. The Valkyrie darted between pirate ships, firing precisely targeted shots. Greg had weapons control, and he used every trick he knew. He didn't just shoot at the pirates, he shot at debris, sending it flying into their paths. He shot at nearby asteroids, breaking them into shrapnel that forced the pirates to dodge. Captain, we have a problem, Greg said. The lead ship is hanging back. It's not engaging us directly. Daniel studied the tactical display. Greg was right. One large ship, bigger than the others, stayed at the edge of the battle. It was watching, analyzing, learning their tactics. That's their command ship, Kate said. The leader is smart. He's letting his ships test us while he figures out our weaknesses. Then we don't give him time to think. Daniel made a decision. Amy, plot a direct course to that command ship. We're going to hit it hard and fast. Sir, that will take us away from the moon, Amy warned. We'll lose the cover and the satellite support. I know. But if we take out their leader, the rest might break and run. Daniel looked at Kate. Do you agree? Kate thought for a moment, then nodded. It's risky, but it might work. The Valkyrie turned and accelerated, burning hard toward the Kraith command ship. The other pirate vessels immediately gave chase, but the human ship was faster. Within minutes, they were in range of the command ship. Fire everything, Daniel ordered. The Valkyrie's weapons blazed. Missiles launched, Energy weapons fired in continuous streams, and even the ship's point defense guns joined the barrage. The command ship's shields lit up like a sun, absorbing the punishment. But Kraith shields were designed to handle attacks from typical galactic species. They weren't designed for humans who pushed their weapons past safe limits, who didn't care about overheating or burnout as long as they got results. The shields failed. The Valkyrie's weapons tore into the command ship's hull, ripping through armor and destroying weapon systems. But before they could finish the job, the other pirate ships caught up. Multiple locks. "They're all firing," Greg announced, his voice calm despite the danger. The Valkyrie shook violently as impacts hit from all directions. Alarms blared. Lisa reported shield failures on multiple sections. The ship was taking serious damage. "Get us out of here," Daniel ordered. Amy pulled the ship into a tight spiral, a maneuver that subjected everyone to crushing G-forces. In her seat, Kate felt her vision narrow as blood rushed away from her brain. Lesser species would have passed out. Humans, evolved to persistence hunt across African savannas, could endure. The Valkyrie escaped the trap, but barely. Warning lights showed red across multiple systems. The ship was hurt. "Damage report," Daniel demanded. "Port shields are gone," Greg said. "Starboard shields at 30%. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 5. We've lost 2 weapons batteries." "Casualties?" "Minor injuries in engineering. Nothing critical." On the moon, the Kraith fighters landed near the control center. Soldiers poured out, at least 20 of them. They were Kraith warriors, larger and better armed than the pirates they had fought earlier. Chris's traps activated immediately. Mining charges exploded, sending several Kraith flying. But the rest adapted quickly, taking cover and advancing carefully. Lucas fired through the window, his rifle taking down 2 Kraith with precise shots. Alex and Jenny fired as well, forcing the attackers to stay in cover. But there were too many. The Kraith began flanking, moving around to the other entrances. Chris fell back inside and sealed the main door, but they could hear cutting tools starting to work on the metal. "Jenny, how much longer?" Lucas asked. 10 minutes, the satellites are almost out of power." "We might not have 10 minutes. Lucas checked his ammunition. He had maybe 50 rounds left. Alex and Jenny had similar amounts, not enough for a prolonged fight. The cutting tools broke through the door. Kraith soldiers stormed in, their weapons firing. Lucas and his team fell back deeper into the facility, fighting room by room. Chris threw his last explosive, collapsing a corridor behind them and buying precious time. They retreated to the main control room where Jenny worked frantically at her terminal. 5 minutes, she said. Just 5 more minutes. Lucas and the others set up at the control room entrance. It was a choke point, narrow enough that the Kraith couldn't use their numbers effectively. They would have to come through 1 or 2 at a time. The Kraith tried. The first soldier through the door took 3 bullets before falling. The second made it 2 steps before Alex dropped him. The third, fourth, and fifth fell in quick succession. But Lucas's rifle clicked empty. He dropped it and pulled his pistol. Beside him, Alex was down to his last magazine. Jenny hadn't even looked up from her work. 3 minutes, she said. In space, the Valkyrie was in trouble. The damaged command ship had fallen back, but the remaining 9 pirate vessels were coordinating their attacks better now. They had figured out some of the human ship's tactics. "Captain, we can't take much more," Kate said. "Hull integrity is at 60%. If we take another barrage like that last one, we're done." Daniel knew she was right. But they couldn't run. Not with Lucas and his team on the moon. Not with 3,000 Quillians depending on them. "Greg, what about the Quillian colony ship? Can they help?" "Negative. They're completely unarmed." Daniel thought hard. There had to be something, some advantage they hadn't used yet. He looked at the tactical display, at the positions of all the ships, at the moon, at the debris field, and then he saw it. "The debris," he said. "From the pirate ships that crashed. Amy, can you use the Valkyrie's tractor beam to grab large pieces?" Amy's eyes widened. "You want to throw debris at them?" "Exactly, at high speed. That's crazy." Amy paused. "I love it." The Valkyrie dove back toward the moon's surface, toward the wrecked pirate ships. The pursuing Kraith vessels followed. thinking they had the humans trapped. Amy activated the tractor beam and grabbed a large section of hull from one of the wrecks. The Valkyrie spun, building momentum, then released the debris directly at the nearest pirate ship. The chunk of metal moved at incredible speed. The pirate tried to dodge but was too slow. The debris smashed into the ship's engine section, crippling it instantly. "That's one," Amy said, already grabbing another piece. She repeated the attack twice more, using wrecked pirate ships as. The jump to faster-than-light travel was rough. Both ships barely held together as they entered the strange space between normal reality and pure speed. The Valkyrie shook and groaned, damaged systems complaining at the stress. The Quillian colony ship, held together by Ryan's emergency repairs, fared even worse, but they made it through. Both ships dropped back into normal space in a safe zone, far from pirate territory. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Daniel finally allowed himself to relax. They were alive. The Quillians were safe. Against all odds, they had won. "Damage assessment," he said quietly. Kate read from her terminal. "Hull breaches on 5 decks. Port shield generator is completely gone. We lost 3 weapon batteries. Main engines are running at 60% capacity. Life support is stable, but we lost redundancy. Casualties are surprisingly light. 15 crew members with minor injuries. No deaths." "That's a miracle," Lisa said. "That's good engineering and good training," Daniel corrected, but he silently agreed. They had been lucky. Over the next few days, both ships limped through space toward human territory. The Valkyrie's crew worked constantly on repairs. Ryan's engineering team barely slept, fixing what they could with limited supplies. The Quillian colony ship traveled alongside them. Trilix recovered enough to send messages of gratitude. Patricia spent hours talking with the Quillian captain, learning about their culture and their history. "They're a peaceful people," Patricia told Daniel during one of the evening briefings. "They've never fought a war in their entire recorded history. When the pirates attacked, they didn't even know how to respond. Fighting just isn't part of their nature." "But they sent out a distress call," Daniel said. "They reached out for help." "Yes, because they believe in the goodness of others. They hoped someone would hear and care." Patricia paused. "They never expected humans to be the ones who answered. They've heard the stories about Deathworlders, the rumors about how dangerous we are. And now they're confused. They can't understand how a species as violent as humans can also be so compassionate." Patricia smiled. "I told them that's exactly what makes us human. We're strong enough to hurt, but we choose to help instead." 3 weeks passed. The ships finally approached human space, entering a sector patrolled by Earth's defense fleet. Immediately, they were surrounded by human warships. But something else was there too. 3 Quillian vessels, sleek and beautiful, waited alongside the human ships. When Trilix saw them, he started making sounds that Patricia's translator called joy vocalizations. "Those are ships from our homeworld," Trilix explained. "They came to escort us home. But they also came to honor your crew." Daniel was touched but uncomfortable with the attention. "We just did what anyone should do." "No," Trilix said firmly. "You did what most would not. You risked everything for strangers. That is rare in this galaxy, Captain Carter." The ships docked at a massive human space station orbiting Jupiter. Medical teams rushed aboard to help with the remaining wounded. Engineers swarmed over the Valkyrie, beginning proper repairs that would take months. But before Daniel could even leave his ship, he received orders to report to Earth Command headquarters in Geneva. The message was brief and official, but he could read between the lines. Someone important wanted to talk to him, and it probably wasn't to give him a medal. Kate, Greg, Patricia, and Lieutenant Hughes were ordered to come with him. They took a shuttle down to Earth, traveling from the orbital platform to the surface in less than an hour. Geneva looked the same as Daniel remembered. Tall buildings reaching for the sky, parks filled with trees, mountains visible in the distance. It was beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. He had been in space for 3 years, and he missed his home planet desperately. Earth Command headquarters was an imposing building made of steel and glass. Inside, military personnel rushed through corridors and screens showed data from across human space. They were led to a large conference room where several high-ranking officers waited. Admiral Frank Schultz sat at the head of the table, his face unreadable. "Captain Carter," Schultz said. "Please sit." Daniel and his team took seats. The room was silent for a moment, tension thick in the air. I suppose you know why you're here, Schultz finally said. I can guess, sir, Daniel replied. We entered the contested zone without authorization. We engaged hostile forces without declaring our intentions to the Galactic Council. We probably violated a dozen regulations. Try 47 regulations, Schultz said. I have a list. Daniel said nothing. There was nothing to say. He had known the consequences when he made his decisions. Schultz stood and walked to the window looking out at the city. The Galactic Council is very angry with us. They claim we're destabilizing their carefully maintained peace. Several species are demanding we be sanctioned. Sanctioned for saving lives? Kate asked, unable to stay quiet. Sanctioned for showing initiative, Schultz corrected. The Council doesn't like it when species act independently. They want everyone to follow their rules, ask permission, and move slowly through their bureaucracy. While people die, Greg said bitterly. Yes. Schultz turned back to face them. While people die. But here's the interesting part. The Council called an emergency session to discuss humanity. They expected a quiet meeting where they would vote on restrictions and we would have no choice but to accept. What happened? Patricia asked. Schultz smiled for the first time. The Quillians happened. They showed up with a petition signed by 17 other species. Minor species, ones without much power in the Council, but enough to make noise. They're demanding that humans be granted full Council rights and invited to join the peacekeeping coalition. Daniel's eyes widened. The peacekeeping coalition? Yes, it's the Council's military branch responsible for protecting vulnerable species and responding to emergencies. It's chronically underfunded and usually ignored, but it exists. Schultz sat back down. The Council can't simply punish us now without looking like hypocrites. If they sanction us for saving the Quillians, they'll lose support from all the minor species. So what happens now? Daniel asked. Now you get to go explain yourselves to the entire Galactic Council, in person, at Unity Prime Station. Schultz looked at each of them. What you say there will determine humanity's future in this galaxy. No pressure. The journey to Unity Prime took 2 weeks. The diplomatic ship was comfortable, far nicer than military vessels. Daniel spent the time preparing with Patricia, learning about Council politics and the species they would face. The most powerful species in the Council were the Velex Consortium, wealthy merchants who controlled most galactic trade. They liked stability and predictability. Humans represented chaos. Then there were the Horthians, a militaristic empire that valued strength above all else. They saw humans as potential rivals and wanted them contained before they became too powerful. Many smaller species had little voice in the Council. They paid fees for protection, but received minimal help when they faced real threats. The Quillians were just one example among many. Trilix and several other Quillian families joined them on the journey. They insisted on testifying at the Council hearing. You saved our children, Trilix said simply. We will speak for you. Unity Prime Station was enormous. It orbited a neutron star protected by shields and advanced technology. Thousands of species lived there, making it the most diverse place in the known galaxy. The Council chamber was designed to intimidate. It was a massive circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Hundreds of species representatives filled the seats, all watching as Daniel and his team entered. Daniel felt small standing on that platform. He could see Velex representatives in their expensive clothing, Horthian warriors in their armor, and dozens of other species he didn't recognize. The Council chairman, an ancient being named Speaker Voth, called the session to order. His species was one of the oldest in the galaxy, and his voice carried weight. We are here to discuss the human incursion into the contested zone and their unauthorized use of force against Kraith vessels. Voth's voice echoed through the chamber. The Velex Consortium has brought charges of territorial violation and excessive force. A Velex representative stood. She was tall and elegant with blue skin and 4 arms. The humans acted without Council approval. They entered a disputed region and engaged in violence that resulted in the destruction of multiple vessels. Such behavior cannot be tolerated. We propose strict sanctions limiting human expansion and military capabilities. They make it sound like we attacked innocent people, Kate whispered. That's politics, Patricia whispered back. A Horthian representative stood next. He was massive, covered in scales and battle scars. The humans are Deathworlders. Their nature is violent and unpredictable. They are too dangerous to allow free movement through the galaxy. We propose they be restricted to their home system until they prove they can control their aggressive instincts. Daniel felt anger burn in his chest. They were twisting everything, making a rescue mission sound like an act of aggression. Speaker Voth turned to Daniel. "Captain Carter, you may speak in your defense." Daniel stepped forward. He had prepared a speech, carefully written words that would be diplomatic and respectful. But standing there, looking at the faces of representatives who clearly had already decided to. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives argued with each other in dozens of languages. Some species seemed angry at Daniel's words, others thoughtful, and some quietly supportive. Speaker Voth called for order, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Silence. Captain Carter has spoken. Now we will hear from the Quillians." Trilix moved to the platform slowly. His injuries were still visible, his missing arm a stark reminder of what had happened. He stood before the council with dignity despite his pain. "I am Trilix, captain of the colony ship Harmony. I speak for 3,000 Quillian lives that were saved by these humans." His translated voice was calm but carried weight. "2 years ago, my people approached this council. We requested protection for our colony mission. We were traveling through dangerous space and we feared pirate attacks." Trilix paused, letting his words sink in. "The council told us we could receive protection if we paid the required fees. The amount was more than our entire colony could afford. We asked for help anyway, explaining we had children aboard. The council said they could not make exceptions. Several representatives looked uncomfortable. This was not information they wanted public. We were attacked exactly as we feared. The Kraith came with overwhelming force. They destroyed our escort ships in minutes. They damaged our engines so we could not escape. They told us they would take our children to sell as slaves." Trilix's voice broke slightly. "I watched my crew die trying to protect those children. I lost my arm fighting creatures I had no hope of defeating." He looked directly at the Velex representative. "We sent our distress call to every frequency we knew. We begged for help. How many ships heard us and turned away? How many species decided we were not worth the risk?" The chamber was completely silent now. The humans heard us. One ship, the Valkyrie, changed course to help. They did not ask about payment. They did not request council approval. They simply came because people needed help. Trilix turned to face Daniel and his team. These humans risked their lives for strangers. They fought against impossible odds. They could have fled at any moment, but they stayed. They stayed because they made a promise to protect us. They violated regulations, the Velex representative said weakly. "They saved 3,000 lives," Trilix replied. 800 of those lives were children. "My children. If following your regulations means letting children die, then your regulations are worthless." The words hit like a hammer. Representatives throughout the chamber began talking again, but the tone had changed. Doubt was spreading. A new figure stood up from a section Daniel hadn't noticed before. The being was tall and ancient-looking, with skin that seemed to shimmer like starlight. This was Elder Vorn of the Karashi Collective. The Karashi were legendary. They were one of the oldest spacefaring species, present when the Galactic Council first formed, but they rarely involved themselves in council politics anymore. "Speaker Voth," Elder Vorn said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "The Karashi request permission to speak." "Of course, Elder Vorn. The Karashi are always welcome." Elder Vorn moved to the platform with slow, deliberate steps. He studied Daniel for a long moment, then turned to address the council. "The Karashi have been observing the humans since they achieved faster-than-light travel 70 years ago. We have watched their expansion with great interest." He paused. "And great hope." "Hope?" the Horthian representative said. "You hope for these violent Deathworlders?" "Yes, because the galaxy needs them." Elder Vorn's words surprised everyone. "This council has existed for 3,000 years. In that time, it has brought stability and prevented many wars, but it has also become complacent. The powerful species maintain their power and the weak remain weak. The system is not unjust by intention, but it has become unjust through inaction." Elder Vorn gestured toward Trilix. "The Quillians are not the first species to be denied help, because they could not afford protection fees. They will not be the last. The Council has forgotten that its purpose was to protect all species, not just those who can pay. The Council must be funded somehow," the Velex representative argued. "True," Elder Vorn agreed. "But when profit becomes more important than lives, the system has failed." He turned back to the full council. The Karashi believe the humans have arrived at a fortunate time. They are strong enough to challenge the existing order but culturally inclined toward protection rather than conquest. You cannot know their true intentions, the Horthian representative said. We have studied them for 70 years. We have seen how they handle power on their own world. Yes, they fight wars. Yes, they can be violent. But they also create laws to protect the weak. They build institutions to care for those who cannot care for themselves. They debate ethics and morality constantly. These are not the behaviors of a species that desires only domination. Elder Vorn moved to stand beside Daniel. Captain Carter asked a question that this council must answer. Are we afraid the humans will hurt us? Or are we afraid they will inspire others to demand better from their leaders? The silence that followed was heavy with implications. The Karashi propose a different solution than sanctions. Elder Vorn continued. We propose that humanity be granted full council rights immediately. Furthermore, we propose they be invited to join and lead the peacekeeping coalition. The chamber exploded with reactions. Half the council seemed outraged, the other half intrigued. This is unprecedented, Speaker Voth said. Humanity is too young. They have only been spacefaring for 70 years. The Quillians have been spacefaring for 300 years, Elder Vorn replied. That experience did not save them from pirates. Sometimes what is needed is not age, but capability and willingness. The humans have both. And if they abuse this power? The Velix representative demanded. Then the council can revoke it. But I believe they will not abuse it. I believe they will do exactly what they did in the contested zone. They will help those who need help. Elder Vorn looked at Daniel. Am I correct, Captain? Daniel met the ancient being's eyes. We don't want to conquer the galaxy. We've seen enough conquest on Earth. But we won't stand by while innocent people suffer, and we won't apologize for being strong enough to help. You hear that? The Horthian representative roared. They threaten us even now. That was not a threat, Patricia spoke up. She had been quiet until now, but she could not stay silent. That was a promise. Humans keep their promises. Speaker Voth raised his hands for silence. The Karashi have proposed a solution. We must vote. But first, are there others who wish to speak? A small figure stood up. It was a representative from the Minari, a species Daniel had never heard of. The Minari support the human petition. 3 years ago, pirates attacked our mining colony. We sent distress calls. No one came. 200 of our people died. Perhaps if the humans had been there, they would have lived. Another representative stood, and another. Species after species told similar stories. Pirates, natural disasters, equipment failures all met with council inaction because they could not afford the help fees. The Velix representative looked increasingly uncomfortable. The Horthian representative simply looked angry. But many other representatives were listening with thoughtful expressions. Finally, Speaker Voth called for the vote. The Karashi have proposed that humanity receive full council rights and leadership of the peacekeeping coalition, subject to oversight. All in favor? The vote took 10 minutes. Electronic systems tallied the responses. Daniel stood on the platform, hardly daring to breathe. This vote would determine not just his fate, but the future of his entire species in the galaxy. The vote is recorded, Speaker Voth announced. 217 in favor, 192 against, 12 abstentions. The measure passes. Daniel felt his knees go weak with relief. They had won. Humanity would have a place in the galaxy, not as restricted Deathworlders but as full members of the galactic community. But the victory was not complete. The Velix representative stood, her face cold with anger. The Velix Consortium formally objects to this decision. We will not participate in any council actions involving humanity. The Horthian representative joined her. The Horthian Empire also objects. We will be watching the humans closely. If they abuse this trust, we will respond with force. The two representatives walked out of the chamber, followed by several other species aligned with them. It was clear that this fight was far from over. Speaker Voth watched them go, then turned to Daniel. Congratulations, Captain Carter. You have your chance to prove what humanity can do. I suggest you not waste it. We won't, sir, Daniel promised. The weeks that followed were a blur. Daniel and his team returned to Earth briefly, where they were celebrated as heroes. But there was no time to rest. The peacekeeping coalition needed to be rebuilt, and humans were now responsible for making it work. The Valkyrie was repaired and upgraded with better weapons and shields. but more importantly, its crew was expanded. Quillian officers volunteered to serve aboard, bringing their knowledge of galactic culture and trade routes. Other species joined as well, technical specialists and translators who wanted to be part of something new. 6 months after the council vote, the Valkyrie launched again. It was the flagship of a small but growing peacekeeping fleet. Daniel stood on the